The deal at Stonegate. The air in the Stonegate Memorial Park in New England always carried the same melancholy weta mix of damp earth, fading lilacs, and the faint, coppery scent of the oldest bronze plaques. For Marty Jones, 30 years spent as a groundskeeper and resident expert on cemetery plots, the quiet was a second skin. It was the week before Mother's Day, the busiest and most emotionally charged time of the year, and Marty was focused on the heavy, intricate work of cleaning the older marble monuments. Marty was bent low, scrubbing lichen from a 19th century obelisk. The rhythm of the brush, a hypnotic scrape against the stone. She paused, wiping her brow with a gloved hand, and straightened. That's when she saw her. Standing perhaps 20 feet away, near the row of freshly planted azaleas, was a woman. She was strikingly elegant, dressed in a muted charcoal gray suit, a delicate pearl necklace, and a small, vintage clutch bag tucked neatly under her arm. She wasn't carrying flowers or a watering can. She was just watching Marty. Marty offered a small, professional nod. The woman didn't nod back. She didn't move. Her posture was rigidly upright, almost posed, and her dark eyes were fixed solely on Marty. It was disconcerting. Marty knew almost every visitor by sight during this busy season, and she certainly knew that visitors never simply stood and stared at the staff. Marty resumed her scrubbing, trying to dismiss the strange encounter. A minute later, she looked up again. The woman was closer now, having seemingly glided across the grass. Still silent, still staring. Marty cleared her throat and decided to break the tension. "Can I help you, ma'am? Looking for a specific plot?" The woman's lips parted slightly, but no sound came out. The air around her, Marty noticed, was abnormally still. There was no gentle breeze ruffling the fabric of her suit, even though the willow trees nearby were swaying subtly. Marty, a practical woman of the earth, felt the first prickle of genuine unease. This was not a regular visitor. This was something else. The tension grew heavy, sinking deep into her chest. Her mind, usually calm and centered, began to race. Am I being tested? Is this a trick? She thought of the countless local legends she'd dismissed over the years, the weeping ladies, the vanishing children. Marty had always maintained a healthy skepticism, focused on the very real hazards of her job: heavy lifting, tricky weather, and dealing with grieving, volatile families. Now, the risk was different. It was a challenge to her perception of reality, threatening the quiet competence that was her sanctuary. The woman's unblinking stare felt like an immense, silent pressure, a request that Marty knew instinctively would be dangerous to ignore. She finally let the scrubbing brush drop with a soft thud onto the muddy tarp. She needed confirmation, a grounding anchor back into the real world. She quickly pulled out her pocket radio and tried the caretaker's channel, only static. The world felt muffled just the two of them under the immense, silent canopy of the old park. The woman slowly tilted her head toward a nearby, modest granite stone. The name engraved was Eleanor Vance. Marty, driven by a cold curiosity, walked over. She checked the register she kept on her clipboard. Eleanor Vance died 1965. Married. No children listed. Cause of death specified illness. Then Marty did what she now realizes she was compelled to do. She looked back at the staring woman and then compared her to the small, weathered ceramic photo embedded in the gravestone. The likeness was perfect. The high cheekbones, the severe hairstyle, even the pearl necklace. The woman in the suit was the photograph brought to life. A cold certainty settled over Marty. She was looking at a spirit, an energy tethered to this resting place. Marty didn't scream or run. She simply stood her ground, acknowledging the terrifying truth with a quiet, icy resolve. Then, the spectral woman finally spoke. The sound was not in Marty's ears, but in the center of her mind. Clear, chilling whisper, formal and direct. My plot is a disgrace for Mother's Day. It requires cleansing. I offer a contract. Cleanse my marker, polish the stone, replace the weeds with fresh soil and lilies before Sunday. Do this for free, and I will secure 3 new clients for you by the end of the month. 3 family plots. Paid, long-term care contracts. Do we have an agreement, Marty Jones? A chilling, impossible business proposition from the dead. Marty, whose income was based entirely on the number of plots she serviced, realized the enormity of the demand and the risk of accepting. But the offer of 3 secure, paid contracts was too enticing to dismiss. Her hand, steady and professional, reached out and took the clipboard. Deal, Marty whispered back, the word tasting like damp earth. Marty worked Eleanor Vance's plot until the setting sun cast long orange shadows across the granite. She scrubbed the stone until it gleamed, applied a fresh coat of sealant, and meticulously planted a border of pristine white lilies. It was, Marty conceded, the most perfect plot in the entire park. The work felt heavy, but she could sense the spectral presence watching, a silent supervisor. When she packed up her tools, the area around the Vance stone felt lighter, less suffocating. She left, saying nothing more. The next 2 weeks passed without incident. Marty began to dismiss the encounter as a strange, high-stress hallucination, a side effect of Mother's Day exhaustion. The ghost client was nonsense, she told herself, a deal with a memory. Then, on a Tuesday morning, a sleek, black sedan pulled up to the Stonegate office. A woman emerged middle-aged, immaculately dressed, looking every bit the part of old New England money. She approached Marty directly, holding a printed map. "Are you Marty Jones, the groundskeeper?" The woman asked, her tone brisk and decisive. "I am good. My name is Patricia Vance. I am Eleanor Vance's youngest sister. I was in Europe for decades and just returned to settle family affairs. I was horrified to find Eleanor's plot in such pristine conditions. She was always so meticulous. It looks magnificent. But the other 3 family plots, ... Patricia wrinkled her nose. They are an absolute disgrace." Patricia Vance unfolded her map and pointed. "I need you to assume immediate, full, year-round care for 4 plot Eleanors, and these 3 others, the Reginald plot, the Ainsworth Monument, and the Old Hawthorne Crypt. 3 new contracts. Marty, can you handle that?" Marty's gloved hand tightened on her rake handle. 3 new, paid, long-term plots, exactly as promised. The chilling realization was that the woman she had negotiated with was not a hallucination, but a silent, powerful agent. The spirit of Eleanor Vance had been true to her word, moving the real-world players like pieces on a chessboard. The horror wasn't in the haunting, but in the cold, efficient transaction. Marty accepted the contracts. She is now the most successful groundskeeper in the county. Her client list secured by a handshake she made with the dead. She cleans the Eleanor Vance plot every Mother's Day, doing the work for free, a silent payment on a debt owed to a meticulous spirit. She never feels fear near the grave anymore, only a chilling sense of professional obligation. The 3 plots are always meticulously maintained, a constant physical reminder that some debts are paid across the boundary of life and death. Do you have a story of a silent deal you made with the unknown? Share it in the comments below. Not all rest in peace. Stay sharp, everyone. To all our amazing viewers and loyal subscribers, we know many of you watch our videos, but haven't subscribed yet. If you enjoy these stories and want to support this project, please hit subscribe, give the video a like, and share it. Now, enjoy what's coming up.
Story 2.
The passenger on Route 13. The neon sign of the yellow cab depot in New Orleans, Louisiana, flickered with a tired buzz, casting a sickly amber glow over the idling taxis. It was well past 2 a.m., the kind of quiet that feels less like peace and more like the city holding its breath. For Frankie, the fixer, Marino, 22 years hauling fares across the Big Easy. The quiet was the only thing he truly trusted. He'd seen it all, the glamour, the grime, and the ghosts that clung to the edges of both. Tonight, he was nursing a lukewarm coffee and waiting for the inevitable late-night Hail Mary that would close out his shift. The dispatcher's voice, a crackle of static and exhaustion, broke the silence. "Frankie, you've got a pickup on Magazine Street, near the old St. Louis Cemetery. No one. Destination, Garden District. Cash fare, Frankie sighed. That corner, close to the city's oldest and most notorious necropolis, always felt cold. Even in July, he pulled his beat-up Crown Victoria up to the curb, the engine idling a rough, mechanical cough. Standing under the weak light of a rusted lamppost was his passenger. She was young, maybe early 20s, with a striking, old-world beauty that seemed out of place in the humid New Orleans night. She wore a simple, sleeveless white dress, and her dark hair was swept up in a style that felt decades old. Her eyes, though, were the thing. Large, dark, and utterly still, like two pools reflecting nothing but the night sky. She slipped into the back seat with a soft whisper. "The old house," she requested, her voice a low, melodic murmur. "Near the Lafayette Cemetery, just past the iron gates." Frankie nodded, punching the address into his GPS. He knew the spot. It wasn't just near the cemetery. It was a stretch of road that felt like an intrusion, wedged between the ornate mausoleums and the quiet wealth of the Garden District. As they drove, the air in the cab grew heavy, not humid, but dense, like breathing in cold velvet. Frankie, a man whose skin was practically leather from years of sun and stress, felt a chill snake up his spine. He tried to make small talk, a professional habit, but she didn't respond. She just gazed out the window at the passing city light, which seemed to dim as they approached. The silence began to press on him, a tangible thing that muffled the sounds of the street. This wasn't the silence of an annoyed passenger. It was the silence of something preternatural. Frankie felt a rising tension, the primal knowledge that he was in the presence of an unknown, a violation of the city's usual rhythm. What was at stake was not just the fare, but his peace of mind. He found himself gripping the steering wheel so hard his knuckles turned white, his heart doing a frantic, hollow drumming against his ribs. The urge to floor the gas pedal and flee this silent passenger was almost irresistible. Get her to the address, get the cash, and get out. That was the only thing that mattered. The GPS chirped, announcing their arrival. Frankie slowed the car. Instead of the expected high stone wall and iron fence of the cemetery, they were pulling up to a charming, white-painted bungalow. It was beautiful, tucked behind a manicured hedge, lights softly glowing from the windows, a quiet, inviting presence in the desolate hour. It defied the logic of the location. "We're here, Miss," Frankie said, turning to collect the fare. She smiled, then a small, genuine curve of the lips that instantly melted the tension. "Thank you, driver. It's late. You look exhausted. Please, come in for a minute, just to rest." "I insist." Her voice was kind now, the murmur of a gracious host. Against his better judgment, a voice of weary practicality overriding the whisper of dread. Frankie agreed. He needed to stretch his legs, and the sight of a normal, well-kept house was a balm to his frayed nerves. He followed her up the porch steps, the wood creaking normally beneath his weight. Inside, the air was surprisingly warm and smelled of vanilla and dust. She led him to a small, comfortable room where a plush, antique armchair was waiting. "Just a moment's rest," she said, her eyes gentle. "No one should drive so tired." Frankie sank into the chair. The material was soft, comforting. The tension, the cold, the strangeness of the ride all dissolved in an instant. The room was dark, but he was too tired to care. He closed his eyes just for a moment. The blaring, metallic sound of a weed whacker ripped him violently from sleep. He jolted upright, disoriented. The soft armchair was gone. The smell of vanilla was replaced by the pungent odor of freshly turned earth and dew-soaked grass. He was sitting on a cold, hard stone bench. He blinked the sleep from his eyes. Above him, the morning sun was just beginning to burn off the thick Louisiana fog. He was not in a charming bungalow. He was in the heart of the Lafayette Cemetery. The house, the porch, the soft room mall of it was an illusion burned away by the dawn. A small group of cemetery workers, dressed in faded green jumpsuits, were gathered around him, staring. An older woman with sharp, kind eyes and a NAMA tag that read Miss Della was holding the weed whacker, her face a mixture of pity and annoyance. "Morning, Miss Della drawled. "You shouldn't be sleeping here. It ain't safe." Frankie scrambled to his feet, heart hammering. He looked around wildly. He was surrounded by centuries of the dead elaborate tombs, fading inscriptions, and the tall, silent majesty of the crypts. He checked his phone. It was 9:30 a.m. He had slept in the cemetery for 7 hours. "The passenger," he stammered, pointing vaguely. "The house. She invited me in." Miss Della's expression softened. "The only house near here is the caretaker's place, and I've been here since 6. You were asleep right here, on this bench, by the grave of the unknown soldier." She paused, then tilted her head. "Wait a minute. You a cab driver?" Frankie nodded dumbly. "Did she pay you?"
Miss
Della asked. "No, I... He looked down. Tucked under his seatbelt was a crisp $50 bill. He had been paid. And on the ground, lying like a forgotten bookmark, was a brittle, yellowed obituary card. Frankie picked it up, his hand shaking. The picture was faded, but the young woman was unmistakable. Below her photo, the text read, "Josefina M. Beaumont, beloved daughter and sister." He scanned the inscription below. Born May 12, 1902. Died October 13th, 1925. May her beautiful soul finally find the peace in death that life denied her. Frankie looked from the card to the bench he had been sleeping on. Directly in front of the bench was a grand columned mausoleum. Engraved on the marble was the single name, Beaumont. The true, horrifying reality of the event hit him not as a scream, but as a cold, dense, and quiet certainty. He had taken a fare, driven a ghost, and slept not in a house, but in a crypt. Frankie didn't quit his job. He didn't tell a soul except for his priest, who mostly just looked concerned. He found the dates of death and the year on the card, 101,325, and started playing it in the Louisiana State Lottery, mixing it with the car's mileage and his own date of birth. It took him 6 months, but the day the numbers 101,325 were drawn, Frankie hit the jackpot. It wasn't life-changing money, but it was enough. Enough to buy a newer cab, a down payment on a small duplex, and, most importantly, enough to take him out of the late-night cemetery rotation forever. A year after the ride, Frankie returned to the Beaumont Mausoleum. He walked up to the iron gate, but he didn't go in. Instead, he simply left a small, polished brass plaque on the ground outside. Engraved on it was a simple message: "Thank you for the ride, the fixer." Frankie Marino drives a different route now, mostly airport fares, and he never goes near the cemeteries after dark. But sometimes, when the light hits his dashboard just right, he catches a scent of vanilla, and he remembers the silence of the woman in the white dress, the quiet cold of the stone bench, and the uncanny gratitude that replaced his fear. Miss Della, who has been working at Lafayette Cemetery for 40 years, will tell you the story is true. She'll tell you that Frankie isn't the first cab driver to wake up on that bench, and that the Beaumont Mausoleum has a strange effect on those who wait for a fare on Route 13. Not all rest in peace.
Story 3.
The haunting of Madeleine LaRue's funeral. During the funeral in New Orleans of a well-known mulatto jazz chanteuse, Maddie LaRue, an event unfolded that would haunt the few who saw it and many more who heard the tale afterward. As the humid autumn twilight settled over St. Bernard's Cemetery, a crowd in dark suits and fine dresses gathered among the older, lichen-covered tombstones. The sky hung heavy as though burdened by grief itself. Among the mourners was Mrs. Elaine Ellie Ray, a long-tenured jazz club hostess and a friend of Maddie's. Ellie moved slowly between floral wreaths and flickering candles, her heart weighed by sorrow when she saw him. A man tall, lean, with dark, oil-black hair plastered to his scalp, as if soaked by sorrow, emerged from an abandoned plot at the far end of the burial ground. His robes, white and sky blue stripes, fluttered in the Mississippi. The plot from which he came was long neglected, its iron gates twisted, one half broken off its hinges. the grass inside wildly overgrown, the soil unsettled. He walked with a mechanical, unearthly gait, step calculated, each joint moving with a hollow precision. His eyes were fixed on Ellie. There was no hesitation, no shiver of doubt in his motion. The mourners, caught in pale grief, saw nothing or turned away. Only Ellie noticed, first as a whisper in her bones, then as a cold prickling at her skin, then a breath. Not quite air, but a force, a touch more felt than scene swept toward her. Ellie staggered, clutching her chest. Her hearing dimmed, the world humming in a low, grinding drone. She gasped. A pressure, wicked and intimate, pressed against her collarbone, threatening to push her down. In the same moment, a figure arose from the shadows of the crypt. Dr. Clement St. Clair, rather, his spirit. Dr. St. Clair had been a respected physician in antebellum New Orleans, known for tending to the enslaved and the poor. He died mysteriously, abandoned by his contemporaries. Ellie had heard stories of his devotion, his torment, his restless wandering after death. From his alcove, among the broken mausoleums, the spirit of Dr. St. Clair charged. He reached out, spectral hand blazing with righteous indignation, and shoved the tall man back toward the ruined tomb. The man nor entity fell, arms flailing, face twisted in silent rage. He collapsed among crumbled headstones, dust rising in sickly vortices around him. Ellie fell to her knees, trembling, fever burning through her veins. The world blurred. She felt the weight of something unseen pressing down, filling her lungs with a scent of mold, rot, wet, earthened, something animal. Pain radiated from her arms. Her breath came fast. She fled, thought she fled, but her legs refused sure footing. By morning, she was feverish, sweaty, delirious. She felt malady marching through her like an infected stream coursing beneath her skin. Home remedies, tea, poultices, cold compresses of no relief. The doctors she visited were baffled, prescribing rest, antibiotics, nothing rooted in the supernatural. Their words were sterile, ineffectual. After 3 nights, the disease seemed to claim her wholly, limbs weak, spirit hollow, the fever refusing to break. On the 4th night, under the glow of a crescent moon, Ellie was taken to a house of spiritual Cara Creole, rooted spiritualists' salon on Royal Street, where marooned souls are said to be seen, and old gods of salt and hush are invited to speak. There, under low lantern light, the spirit mediums gathered. They whispered incantations, burned herbs, held cold mirrors to the candle flame to see what danced behind shadows. One of the mediums, Madame Lisette Dumont, perceived something in Ellie's aura dark stain, like a dried bruise under translucent skin. In her readings, they discovered the truth. The spirit that touched Ellie was once a man named Gabriel Hayes, who had died years before of a wasting disease that ate his leg, a sickness that peeled flesh painfully, that no physician had cured, that left him alone in a small boarding house in Jackson Square. He died unmarked, forgotten, his death unrecorded. His memory lingered in the abandoned tomb. No one knows why he came there at that moment, why the heavy specter of grief at Maddie's funeral drew him from rest. Perhaps he sought acknowledgement, perhaps vengeance, or perhaps simply contact with the living soul among mourners. Years later, Ellie learned from Gabriel's younger sister, Marlene Hayes, who had traveled from Baton Rouge to visit the tomb. She confirmed the description: the same white and sky blue robes, the same gaunt thinness, the same posture. She told Ellie that Gabriel had once spoken of being buried in someone else's plot, overlooked, displaced, that he died alone, suffering, no one knowing his name, no one near for comfort. Ellie never fully recovered. Physical scars faded, but nights remain restless. Dreams bring the crunch of dry leaves over grave soil, echoing footsteps that touch. She sometimes wakes hearing Gabriel's ragged breath, or Dr. St. Clair's indignant whisper. At the grave of Gabriel Hayes, Marlene left wildflowers, unmarked stones, a single blue ribbon. She said aloud what no one had said before: "You are not forgotten. The city holds its breath, listening for tales like Ellie's. So when the candles flicker, when wind rattles tune gates, remember, there are presences born of sorrow and neglect.